Today's video is going to be on Minnie Pearl. I've inserted a picture that I took a couple years ago at the museum they had in her hometown of Centerville, and I'm headed there today, but had to stop at this little roadside park just to show you something extra. And looks like the Centerville Garden Club has planted the trees and got this little park area here. But the main reason I stopped is to see what's on the rocks above. Yes, it's Minnie Pearl. This bust statue of her is made out of chicken wire. And it's a nice little tiny park area here. So if you're headed to Centerville, Tennessee, or passing through, you need to at least pull over and look at the nice little park they got and see the statue of Minnie Pearl made out of chicken wire. Now on to the town of Centerville to find out more on Minnie Pearl. Our first stop will be the old courthouse. I found out now, since the last time we were here, they have a new courthouse, and they've even got a different statue, but it's still of Minnie Pearl. More about the old statue later. It looks like Minnie is completely happy just watching the traffic go by there in Centerville. Now let's take a closer look at the Minnie Pearl statue. Looks like she has her signature hat on. And yes, I still see a tag hanging from her hat. Let's take a closer look at that. And as we do that, we see that the hats are still selling for $1.98. Well, due to a storm, it damaged the museum. It's closed, but the Historical Society building seems to be open, so we'll head over there. Today I'm in Centerville, Tennessee at the Historical Society, and I met a wonderful lady here, and she has a connection to why I'm in Centerville today. She's a relative of Minnie Pearl. I'll let you tell her name and also what relation she is to Minnie Pearl.
Okay, my name is Mary Beth Pruitt, and Minnie, or Ophelia Collie Cannon, was my great aunt. She is my grandmother's sister, Dixie Shouse, and Dixie Collie Shouse is my grandmother, and they were sisters.
And tell me why Centerville was so important to Minnie Pearl.
Well, she was born here, she grew up here, and actually, a lot of people don't realize this, she was actually discovered here. That she performed here for a bankers convention in 1940, and somebody that was in the audience called the Opry manager and told them that they needed her on the Opry, and that's what got her the audition that led to her being on the Grand Ole Opry. But she was born here. She was born down on what was called at that time Depot Street. Now it's West End Avenue. Her father was a lumberman, and her mother was from Franklin. She was a Southern belle from Franklin, and he married her, and they moved here in the late 1800s. Had 5 girls and raised them in a beautiful house. This is right here is a drawing of the house. It burned in the 40s, so it's not here anymore, but that was the house she grew up in.
Well, I know Minnie talked a lot about Grinder Switch, and I found a sign down the road a little ways. It said Grinder Switch, and I'm thinking that was maybe the depot station that was still standing when I viewed it. So can you tell me a little bit what went on and how come Grinder Switch was so important to her?
Grinder Switch was just a switching station out town. It was on. The reason it was called Grinder Switch is the Griner family owned that property at one time. And it was actually Griner, and they put the D in it for some reason, and it became Grinder Switch. But she used to go with her father. They loaded railroad ties from his sawmill. They would load them out there at Grinder's Switch, and so she would ride out there on the horse with him, and met the men around. And there was really nothing much at Grinder's Switch. There was, I think, a store there at one time, a little store, but it really never was a town. It was just kind of a wide spot in the road, and nobody much lived out there. So when she needed a town to be from, she picked that because nobody lived there for her to offend or what, whatever. She could just she created that town in her mind.
Oh, well, that's
a mythical village. So.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story. And one more question. I know she was married to Mr. Cannon, and where was their final home, and is it still standing?
They lived in the house next on Curtiswood Lane next to the governor's mansion in Nashville. And the house is still there. It's been completely redone. She would not recognize it, but that's where they lived in their final years. The first house I remember they lived in was out on Murray Lane in Brentwood, and it was the top of a hill, and I barely have any memory of that house. I was too young to remember it. And I'm not sure when she moved to Curtiswood Lane, but I know it was in the early to mid 60s because I remember she took my grandmother and me to see The Sound of Music when it premiered in Nashville at the Bellmead Theater, and we went out there to meet her to go. So that's the first real memory I have of that house, but that would have been in 65, maybe somewhere along in there. But anyway, that's where she lived, next door to the governor's mansion. She was good friends with all the governors, so they socialized.
Well, you can tell from her personality on stage, she was a very friendly person.
Oh yeah, she was a great person, a great aunt, and a great just human being. She was special.
I thank you so much for talking to me today, and I want to hope everybody realizes we need to keep memory of Minnie Pearl alive forever.
Well, we're trying. We have all kinds of memorabilia and things. This piece of furniture actually came from her mother's house. It would have been in the original house, but then after her father died, her mother moved up closer to the square into a smaller house, and so that piece of furniture came from there. And we actually have her dining room table and chairs back here that we managed to get from the estate in a roundabout way. But it's a big long table with 8 chairs, I think, that belong to her.
Well, I thank you so much for all the information. It's been a learning experience for me.
Well, I'm glad you came in.
All this in here.
And that's a picture up on the top of my great-grandmother, Fanny Tate Colley, and all the sisters sitting there.
So Fanny Tate was your grandmother?
Great-grandmother.
Great-grandmother. Okay.
And Dixie was my grandmother.
Okay.
She was the closest in age to Phia. She was 7 years old when Phia was born, so they were the closest in age, and they were really, really close because the other girls were already up in their teens and married and moved away, when Phia was still pretty young.
I should have asked you a question. The $1.98 for the hat. What made her think of $1.98?
It was an accident. She originally, the old pictures, she didn't have the price tag, but at some point early on, she had gone to get some new flowers to go on her hat and forgot to take the price tag. The price tag was actually on the flowers originally, and she forgot to take the price tag off, and it fell down. The price tag fell down during her performance, and people liked it so much that she decided to keep that as a trademark. So that was just kind of a thing that happened by accident. For their lumber business, and he built his lumber mill, and that is at the end of the street on the opposite side of the square. If you go west off the square, and that was down at the end of the street That bridge led to Ship's Bend. It's not there anymore. They built a new one on down further. And so that was where the lumber mill was, and all the people that worked there lived in some of the houses along there. And then their house was up at the top of the hill. See where that building is with the green roof? And if you went on and wound up the hill, their house was right up at the very top of the hill.
As I left the Historical Society building, I noticed a sign next to the street paying an honor to Minnie Pearl, and also one of the store windows had a sign telling some about Minnie Pearl. Centerville's proud of Minnie Pearl, and they have a right to be, as she was really a great performer. Now on to Linden, Tennessee, and talk about that first statue. You can find that first statue of Minnie Pearl in the Commodore Hotel lobby there in Linden. And it was said it was moved from causing traffic jam problems at the courthouse in Centerville. So now on to the cemetery to visit the final resting place of Minnie Pearl. Minnie Pearl, along with her husband, is buried in Mount Hope Cemetery in Franklin, Tennessee. As we head on to take a closer look at Minnie's gravesite, I'd like to mention a few things about her. Minnie Pearl was known mainly as a comedian on the Grand Ole Opry, but she also did some singing and appeared on as guest on some TV shows and all. But she has been inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, and she would win the National Medal of Arts Award, which is the highest award given to an artist by the United States government. Now let's take a closer look at Minnie and her husband's grave. I'll also say that Minnie's husband was a pilot, and he had a charter business. Not only did he fly Minnie to many of her performances, but he would fly people such as Eddie Arnold, Hank Williams, and even Elvis Presley to some of their performances. Also, there is several of the Cannon family besides Minnie and her husband buried here. His parents and his siblings are also buried in this cemetery, but today we're just mainly wanting to take a look at Sarah Ophelia Cannon's grave. And if you didn't know any better, you would never know that she was known as Minnie Pearl, because there's no indication of it on her marker there. I do see that somebody has a remembrance as Minnie Pearl, though. They have left her a hat with a tag still on it. If you're a Minnie Pearl fan, as I am, you can still hear her saying, "Howdy, I'm so proud to be here." That was kind of her introduction line each time when she got to the Grand Ole Opry. So, next to her is buried her husband, of course. And as I said, he was a pilot. And they were married for over 50 years. On the other side of Henry is the gravesite of his sister, Alice McEwen Cannon Patterson. There's also another one that said Cannon on the other side of Minnie, and I never did find exactly out who that is. I still have more research to do, but like I said, all of Henry's family mostly is buried here. And I'd like to say thanks so much for watching my video, and I hope you have a good day.